Strap in, everybody. Grab a drink, because this is a tier list. Let me just get my own going here. I don't know why I had to make the mouth sound at the same time. All right. That was something. We'll just not talk about what that was. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my February tier list. Welcome back to Dylarr's Tactics. What an intro. So, it's that time of the month. I want to get my tier list out to you because I went through and changed my tier list extensively. The new addition of the 5 extra levels to the clan raid and Forbidden Dungeon hard mode has really shone light on heroes that we had kind of overlooked before that are now infinitely more usable, that are better. They deserve a higher ranking or a lower ranking on my tier list. So, like I said, I don't know if I said, but this video tends to run a little long. So we're going to go through all the heroes kind of in their entirety. So this is usually roughly about a 45-minute video. I'm sorry, the Dylarr does things long. Miss Dylarr likes... I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Let's get right to it. Man, I'm just saying just stupid things. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, first of all, if you've seen my tier list videos before, I have re-ranked or I have reclassified the tiers. So I went triple S. Oh, this is wrong. This is wrong. Get rid of that. There we go. That's okay. This will work. You know, I won't have to go back and redo this video again. So triple S, S, then triple A, PvP dungeon, basically like old school dungeons, like the old level up dungeons, or what are they called? Power up dungeons, and then just not really used. So I only have on here the heroes that I have those relics of, with the exception, you'll see an Ain Wind, because I kind of wanted to discuss that when we talk about PvP. And as well, I'm also going to discuss Lancelot Frost when we get to him too. So, but I kind of reorganized these because of how much things have changed in the game just in the last 2 weeks. So let's start at the top. Let's start at the SS tier. The triple S tier in the game. These are usually the best heroes that you can go for in this game and the best relics. And at one point I had Bedivere on here, but I just have to put Morgan on here. We all know we get Morgan for free day one. It's really weird that they give you the best hero in the game. Now, last month I was a little bit torn whether or not I wanted to put Wind over Ice, and I think I did. But after using her recently, Wind over Ice. So we all know what her fire relic does. It's her S2. She's going to put down, or she's going to do an AoE, and she's going to strip turn meter. I'm going to call it turn meter. I'm not calling it attack gauge. I might call it attack gauge. She's going to strip attack gauge from the enemies on the field, and you can just create perpetual loops with her and just clear content like it's like a joke. So she is number 1 in the game, number 1 in triple S tier, and she's quickly followed up by herself. So the reason why I like the Morgan Wind relic so much, and I don't think it is only purchasable, but it is always purchasable in this game. You can go to the store and you can find it. The reason why I like it so much is that it has so much more utility. So her S2 is going to do another AoE. It is going to strip turn meter on the first time, but then it's also going to do an AoE 2 stacks of defense down on the whole enemy field based on accuracy. That is huge. You bring in a damage dealer, that just lets you mow through opponents that much quicker. Especially if they have high defense, you can just insanely ramp your damage using her S2. And I've found myself using her S3 a lot more, which is great. And it is because it's an AoE sleep. You know, it's a form of CC. Yes, sleep can be broken by hitting them, but being able to, and I've used this especially in the Forbidden Dungeon hard modes, is being able to just do that S3 right off the bat just to sleep the enemy field lets you just set up your pieces how you need them to go. And if things start to get a little out of hand, you can just whap that S3 again and try to put them all to sleep again and then reset. So for those reasons, I'm giving her the benefit over Frost. Now, Frost does have some nice benefits. I don't want to discount Frost. It's just the S2, you know, again, that first volley is going to reduce turn meter. And it's also going to remove buffs. It's going to strip buffs, which can be very, very, very useful in this game. But I use the Frost mainly for the S3, and I use it in PvP because her S3 lets you target another hero. You're going to give, I think you give your whole team shields, but you're going to target your other hero. You're going to ramp up their attack gauge to full, and you're going to give them attack up 2 for 2 turns, which is a huge opening move. If you've got like a maxed out Iwaret or a maxed out Betty, pass that turn meter over to them and just watch them slap. So while wind and fire are both good, I find myself using the S2 and the S3 on the wind far more than I do the Frost Relic. So I'm giving it the number 3. If you don't like it, put it in the comments. Get up my engagement metrics. And then Betty. Oh, Bedivere. So Bedivere in the Ice Relic, that's the one he comes in. That's his base. You get that boy up to C8 and you get him fully awakened. He should be one of your first DPS that you work on, but you have to get him. Currently, at the time of this recording, he is in the summoning pool, or he is available to summon. And I made the recommendation that if you're a brand new account, you should probably get yourself a Bedivere, because he will just elevate your account so much higher than, you know, not having, like, because the drop off in DPS from Bedivere down to, like, say, so Iwaret's a close second, but Iwaret requires a lot of setup. You know, Cormac's good. You know, Tristan's got good single target DPS, but then like Clarison, she's an attacker. It drops off really quickly in damage numbers after Bedivere and Iwaret. Now we're going to talk about Anya. Look at, I said it right. Anya, not Ain. Anya. So I'm putting the Frost one up here because the Frost one, and I do have her in Fire and Wind on this list as well. But the Frost one just works. It's like it works everywhere. You can use it in PvP if you don't have the other ones. You can use it in every PvE game mode. You can use it in Clan Raid. You can use it in Clan War. You just use it everywhere. It's so good. I'm not gonna tell you why it's so good. You can go watch the video because that would take me forever because her kit is so in depth. But she can just sit there, pop up her buffs. They come up at the start of battle, and she buffs up all your attackers. She just gives so many buffs, and she counterattacks, and she gives your team counterattack. And, you don't want to hit her because she's going to hit you just so hard. So Anya is definitely triple S. You want to get one. You want to get her up to C4 as fast as possible. Then we're talking about Flame Sergius. So Sergius, you got to buy him from the arena shop. He comes in Wind, but you want to walk, not run, to your clan store, save up all that currency that you get in your clan, and then buy the Flame Relic first thing out of that shop, because we all know what it does. He starts an almost infinite loop of turn meter for your whole team. He gives your whole team on his S3 60% attack gauge. That's, they call it 600, but it's 60% of your whole attack gauge, which means you're going to be at full or damn near full. And you can just create this infinite loop, especially if you run him with a Flame Morgan. Okay, I just was checking to make sure my mic was on. So Sergius, definitely triple S. He's well deserves the triple S status. Now, Jillian, I'm starting to think that I'm using her less and less. So Jillian, she's a support. She's a healing support, but healing's not really what she does. The Ice Relic is ahead of the Fire Relic. Fire Relic's the one that she comes in base. The reason why the Ice Relic's so good is because it's an AoE heal, right? And the more time she heals, the more time she can give your team attack gauge. And we all know that when she attacks, she's going to strip attack gauge from multiple enemies on the field. So Jillian is really a attack gauge manipulator, support / healer character. And you definitely do feel the benefit of someone like her over Turin, but Turin and Sarah, who are in the S class, they're both healers. Sarah does a little bit more different things in her kit. Turin is mainly the I would still say that Turin's like the #1 healer in this game for just straight healing. But I'm still giving Jillian, for now, a spot on the triple S tier of this, or in this game, because of all of the turn meter attack gauge manipulation that she can do on your side of the battlefield and the opponent's. It can really just make hard content easy. And I think that's the defining characteristic of a triple S hero. S tier. Okay, we're getting into S tier. So a couple additions to the S tier, and I think there's been some subtractions. I can't remember what I was at last month, but Lancelot went right up to the front of the line in S tier. Now, you can make an argument for triple S tier, but I'm putting him as S tier because for the first 80% of the game, you don't really need Lancelot. But once you get him and get him highly developed, you have to have him highly developed. He just becomes so good at so many different areas of the game. One of his defining characteristics is he's the only general speed lead in this game. So we have a lot of speed leads. We have Rosie's a speed lead, Anguish is a speed lead, Cormac's a speed lead, Ceres is a speed lead. The difference is those speed leads all work in limited places, whereas Lancelot, his speed lead works in every single game mode across this game. And as we're finding out in these last 5 stages of Clan Boss, dots are really powerful. He's getting used everywhere. If you look at screenshots in Forbidden Dungeon hard mode, he's used everywhere now. He's just that good, and he's really beefy because he can generate his own shields. He's a control type unit. He's not a support. He's not an attack. He's not a defender. He's just the dots are good. He's got an S2 stun, which is also clutch. And then if you get him in his Frost Relic, which I thought about adding this, I'm probably going to add it after I post this video. I am going to put the Frost Relic directly behind him. The Frost Relic's really good because its S3 puts chills down. Now, chills are also dots, but... Oh, wait, sorry. No, that's wrong. His S3 is an AoE CC. It's a freeze. So his Frost Relic is good more for PvP. So I think I would actually not put it S tier. I would probably put his Frost Relic in the PvP column because I don't really see a reason why I would want to use that, because you're not putting chills. It's CC on his S3. Now, he does apply chills on his S2 of his Frost. The Frost and the Fire are kind of reversed. The Fire, the CC is on the S2 and the dots are on the S3. And then with the Frost, the dots are on the S2 and the CC is on the S3. But the freeze, we have other options for AoE CC, aka Morgan Wind, aka Merlin Frost. There are other options, whereas his AoE, dot spread from his fire is just so good. It's just so good. So he gets the top spot in the S tier or S tier list. The S, yes, the S tier on this tiered list. Wow. Have another drink, Dylarr. Moving on. So, does Merlin warrant the second spot over someone like I Wear It? I could make an argument for Turin being in the second spot, but we're going to give it to the Fire Relic Merlin. Now, we all know he comes in Frost. The Frost has that really good S3 freeze, so it's a CC. It's an AoE CC. That's really good for getting you through content. He's got some interesting stuff on his S2 for dot teams, right? So you don't take dots. So his Frost is more of a straight control type. You're not going to be using him for his damage. But when you want CC, when you want AoE CC, it's really good. Plus, he can revive on his S3. But Fire takes the cake. Fire is by far better. No, so the Frost version of Merlin, which is weaker in my opinion, you can use him in a Gorgos team. There's a million videos on YouTube. You can go and find them. You can 3-man Gorgos 10, right? But it requires speed setup. Now, Fire, so where do I use the Fire Merlin? I use him in stage 25 to 30 of Cat. I use him in the Tarrasque power-up dungeon, stage 10. His S3 does a crit damage up on your whole team, and it applies an AoE attack gauge immunity or attack gauge gain immunity on your opponents, which is perfect for Tarrasque. And then his S2 puts this thing down called Phoenix Ashes. And what happens is when that enemy is attacked, it's going to heal whoever on your team attacked that opponent, and it's also going to ramp up their turn meter by 30%. So it's his S2 and his S3 are really good. And yeah, the fact that Merlin Fire can allow you to do Tarrasque 10 in under a minute, he definitely, for that reason alone, given that Tarrasque is so hard, for that reason alone, he gets that second spot on this list, the Merlin Fire. Merlin Frost, we already talked about. I could make an argument that Iwaret has to be in front of him. Obviously, you see here Iwaret is grayed out, kind of darkened, because I don't have a copy. I wish I had a copy, but I did not have a copy. I tried. I pulled 190 rate-up summons on him. Still didn't get one. So I couldn't. I was tapped out. Right? No more. The wife said no more spending. So, I missed it. Hopefully, there is a way to get her soon, because it has been, has it been 2 months already? It might be 2 months. I think it's 2 months this Wednesday, because we've had Vivian, Gilroy, and Ceres all come out. And those are all 2 weeks. So a month, 2 weeks. Yeah. All right. So I am giving Iwaret a good spot on this list. He is an S tier unit. Why? Because he can dish out so much damage. He requires a lot. He's not as easy. He's not as point and shoot as Bedivere, which is why I'm not giving him a triple S ranking. He requires a little bit more finesse, a little bit more time to ramp up to get that damage, whereas Bedivere just does that damage. So I'm still giving him a good ranking. He is going to be considered S tier, but he's definitely not going to be triple S tier just because he just is lacking he's not as easy to get that damage. Cormac, Frost Cormac. Okay, Cormac I do believe comes in wind. Correct me if I'm wrong. Do I have to tell you guys? You should know by now what Frost Cormac does. You've probably seen at least 18 videos showing off Frost Cormac. I think I have 5. It's the AoE ground and pound Hulk smash. The issues with Cormac, though, is you got to build him like an attacker. And, S3s cost a lot of vigor. So if you don't kill somebody, if you do kill somebody, you go again. That damage is going to be dependent on the amount of enemies on the field. So he's not really a single target damage dealer. He's really good for AoE, multiple units, and he will dish out an obscene amount of damage. I've used him to do Jaskelhaig 10, so that's the Fire Dragon. And you can use him anywhere in story, especially early game. If you don't have a Bedivere, you're going to need a Cormac Frost. He can just dish out so much damage once you get that S3 on his Frost Relic maxed. And he deserves a spot on the S tier. Turin. I think I should put Turin ahead of Bedivere. In fact, we're doing that. You know why? Because Wind Turin is a lot like Fire Morgan. You get her day one. Day one in this game, they give you a copy of Wind Turin. And she's just so good. Her S2, she gives so many buffs to your team. And she applies recovery over times. Her S3 is a monster AoE heal if you really need that big burst of healing. She's such a clutch healer. Like when I had Fire Jillian, she healed, but she only healed one person. Whereas I just loved the fact that Turin applies all these hots, and they don't proc until your allies take a turn. So if they get hit in the interim, when Turin hasn't gone, then they're just gonna get healed. What am I trying to say? So if they're at full health and they get hit and then they take a turn, then they're just gonna heal. So it's just like they're always getting healed. It's an AoE hot and an AoE heal. I don't know why I'm making it so complicated, but I use her everywhere. I'm using her in Forbidden Dungeon hard everywhere. She's just so good. So she's definitely S tier. I'm not giving her the triple S. Kind of like, Lance or Iwaret, but she is a hard S tier unit. Now, Frost Sarah. Why do I have Frost Sarah up versus Wind Sarah? I do believe Sarah comes in Wind. And you will... so Sarah is used in a couple places. So she's used in Arena, because if you have her C8, she blocks turn meter manipulation, turn 1 for Serpent Allies, a.k.a. Morgan, a.k.a. Iwaret, a.k.a. Ceres. So she's good that way in general. The reason why I have Frost up higher is because I use her today. Like even today, I use her in my Jaskelhaig 10 team. And you want the Frost unit. You want her as Frost because she's going to take less damage, and she's going to have a better advantage over that Fire Dragon. And I do believe Frost, I don't want to go into the kits, but I do believe Frost does have, I think it's all heals. It's either Frost or Wind. One of them has all heals. But for the most part, you're only ever going to be using her S1 anyway. Now, Fire Sarah is not on here, but if you were going to use her in Tarask, you would want to use Fire. You can use Wind though, so you know she can be using Wind. And in Tarask, all she wants to do is get that S1, that attack gauge immunity, and the buff block on the cat. Same with Yaskelhaig. You want that S1. That's the only reason why you want her. You want to get that buff block on Yaskelhaig so he doesn't ramp up all those buffs and then wreak havoc on you. But, she can heal in a pinch. Her S2 is an AoE heal, so I have used that. And I have used Sarah, I do believe, in a Forbidden Dungeon hard mode where I have to use Serpent's Favor units. So she's definitely useful. But I am giving the Frost an edge only because I still use it in an endgame dungeon. I don't use her in the Wind, but you could use her in Wind if you did not have Frost. You would probably use Wind in Tarask. You obviously wouldn't want to bring it into Aldry. Or no, wait. Aldry? Yeah, you wouldn't want to bring it into Aldry. She'd get leveled. But you can actually... you do want to bring it into Aldry. The Wind you want to bring into Aldry. And you can, and I have seen people do that. So you can use her there too. So she's just a really good unit for that buff block and that attack gauge immunity. So I am giving her an S tier ranking, but I am going to give the Frost one an edge over the Wind and the Fire. So now we're going to get into the AAAs. Now, Lot Fire. Okay, I had Lot Fire previously classified as a unit with niche use cases, limited use cases. But oh man, he is one of the MVPs of Forbidden Dungeon Hard because those units hit so hard there that if you can get Brainwash on your enemies, you just watch them kill each other. It is a thing of beauty. And we all know that Lot Fire, I have sung its praises for using the S3 AoE Oblivion on floor 92 of Forbidden Dungeon Normal. Just makes that cake. I'm going to say it. Lot Fire is a cheat code, much like Sergi's Fire, but for different reasons. He let me clear so many stages, or earlier stages in Forbidden Dungeon Hard, just by putting Brainwash on the whole team. So good. Such a good unit. And, there's all the other stuff in Lot's kit in general, like the Vigor decrease on the enemy side, the Vigor generation on your side. You put him in a speed set, he can be a little bit speedy. We all kind of poo-pooed on Lot when this game came out. So you'd see videos of some people summoning and they'd pull one and they're like, oh, I heard he sucks. No. I know it's disappointing because he comes in a base Frost Relic, which does have some uses for PvP. And it does have uses for Forbidden Dungeon Hard as well. But once you get that Fire Relic, he just becomes such a beast controller unit. Just absolutely mwah. Chef's kiss. Not enough to get an S or a triple S rating, though. Clarison just keeps getting better, in my opinion. She comes in Fire. Fire is all you need. That S2 speed up with crit damage up to your whole team is absolutely money. Her S3 has an evasion down, which works good. I've used her in Yaskelhaig in the higher levels of Clan Raid. And then if you get her Frost Relic, she dishes out more damage. She's an attacker. She can do okay damage, but really that S2 ability and the evasion down debuff that she can put down is really good. So she's only going to get the AAA though. There is an argument I could say that Guinevere should be higher. Why? Because I kind of poo-pooed on Guinevere myself. I had her lower on this list before as well, but bringing her into a battle, she's immediately going to put down a ability called Romantic Reversal on your team. What is it going to do? It's going to prevent them from getting abnormal status effects, which is CC, right? So I'm fine that I'm using her in Forbidden Dungeon Hard as well, more. You need her for Crom Crotch. We all know that. She is the crotch key, or the key to the crotch. Gwen is the key to the crotch. Why do I say things like that? But her S1 has an ability to, I think it's an attack down. Something to do with like an attack down. So it's a negative debuff that you put on the opponent. Her S2 is an AoE shield for your entire team. I don't use her S3, although some rare times I'll use her S3. But her kit is really nice because she starts out with that full bar of protection. So she's really tanky. She's really, really tanky. But that opening abnormal status immunity is just really good in a lot of places. And you can't, you don't really feel it like you do like a damage dealer. But once you like use her to actually pass something really, really hard, you're like, now I see the utility. So yeah, she gets the AAA ranking. Sigrun. So we had to use her for an event for Ceres. And that's where I really started to appreciate how much reflect damage she can do. You want her a little higher than C3 though. I think that Queen's counter at the beginning, that actually might be on the C8. So you might not really feel the real oomph of the Sigrun until C8. But she can still come in clutch. You can still use her in a lot of places. You build her with, I build mine with vigor and defense. And really you're putting down the marks. You're hitting the marks. But every time they hit you, she's going to reflect back a lot of damage. We've all run into that Sigrun in Arena that you just keep hitting and you're like, what the hell is she doing? She's not the most flashiest of heroes, but she definitely deserves a AAA rating. Now, Tristan. I had Tristan a lot lower last month. But we've since found out, or people have come around to the fact that you don't build him for speed, even though his kit says build him for speed. You build him like an attacker. You build him like a Bedivere. And as soon as we did that, he does... Oh, I'm going to cough. Whoa. Where did that come from? He does almost... Got a little tickle in my throat. He does almost god tier single target damage. Mine is only C2, so he's I'm not seeing the benefit of that super duper damage, the duper damage. But I've seen videos of it. He can hit really hard, and I've seen people using him in Forbidden Dungeon hard mode. If I see a unit that is used in high level Forbidden Dungeon hard, they get a higher ranking in this list now. Lot Wind. Okay. Now, I kind of struggled putting Lot Wind here, but a lot of people were able to get Lot Wind from the Ceres Dungeon event that is still ongoing at the time of this recording. You got to spend a little stamina, but if you get it, you have to use his S3, which also applies Brainwash. Brainwash is becoming a triple S, quadruple S tier ability mechanic in this game. His S2 in Wind, though, only does Oblivion. The Fire is leaps and bounds ahead of Wind because you do the Oblivion on the S2 versus having to spend all that vigor on the S3. So the Wind is still good because you can apply Oblivion and Oblivion and Brainwash. It's just flipped in order. So S3 versus S2 between Fire and Wind. So I had to put it lower. I had to put it way, way, way lower. I would highly recommend if you have the Fire, you're probably not going to use the Wind unless you're in a situation where you are required to use Wind units. Then you can use him. But otherwise, Fire is going to be your go-to. Now, Fire Rosie. Fire Rosie is still up on this list. Why? Because, again, dots have become increasingly powerful in this team because dots take a percentage of HP. They don't care how big your HP pool is. So a dot, regardless, scales off of the difficulty of your opponent. The more HP your opponent has, the more a dot is going to take. And she is she's the queen of dots. I'd say there's a competition between Anguish and Lancelot for the king of dots. So I kind of want to, we'll talk about her and Anguish together. Because people are using Anguish in Clan Boss Aldry, stage 25 to 30. Because dots are so good. Right? Just get a bunch of dots on them. Let them just to chunk damage. And we've all seen those monster scores in Clan Raid against Gorgos using dot units. You're just getting huge numbers. So because of that, Rosie and Anguish are both up here at a AAA rating just on the fact that dots are so powerful, hence they are so powerful. And then Wind Rosie, Wind Sarah, we kind of talked about. All right, so now we're just getting into the A's. So the A's are easier because these are ones that have like almost niche uses. So Fire Claudus. Claudus I was using in earlier stages of Tarask in Clan Raid because her S2 has that AoE turn meter removal. Her S1 is also really good for turn meter removal, and you can kind of loop it depending on her kit. And Tarask. I don't use her in my Tarask 10 team anymore, but a lot of people can. I did until I got Fire Merlin. So the fact that she can allow you to down Tarask 10, and the fact that we use her in high level clan raid, or can use her in high level clan raid, even though I don't anymore, but you can. She's not ideal. She's a damage dealer that doesn't do a whole lot of damage. But since she does have some definite uses, I'm still going to give her an A on this list, right? Because if you look at the way the next tiers go, it's like PvP and old school dungeon, and then just not used. So A is not really a high rating. Really, the 3 ratings at the top of this list, those are the high ratings. A, not so hot. Vivian, another one I didn't get. I spent 60 pulls, stopped at 60 though, didn't get her. But everyone wrote her off as trash. Turns out she might have some uses for Clan War. Or not Clan War, Clan Raid. High-level Clan Raid. I don't know if she's used in Forbidden Dungeon Hard. I can't say I remember her from the screenshot, but the fact that I'm starting to hear rumblings, and this is usually how it happens, I'm hearing rumblings of good uses out of her, I thought that she was deserved a spot here. And she comes in fire, by the way. Bedivere Wind. Okay, so with the addition of these new clan boss, these upper tiers, and Forbidden Dungeon Hard, I have used my Wind Bedivere in Clan Raid and Forbidden Dungeon Hard. Why? Because you get a bonus against ice units. So I use them, and I've used them in a place where they say, hey, you got to bring in 3 wind. Well, okay, so I brought him a Bedivere, and he still did okay damage. A wind or a fire is not going to do the same kind of damage as the ice. It's just not. But it still does decent damage. So he gets an A rating. I used to have Wind Sergius. Now, you get Sergius Wind as his base. Like, that's what he comes in Wind. I used to use him a lot when I first got him, because if you put that focus target on, then every time he goes, he's going to reduce the turn meter of that target, but he's going to do AoE damage on the other ones. So he was okay. I did like him in some kits. I used him in Tarask up to like 8, level 8, Tarask 8, I think, and it was enough for him to be attacking the main boss to keep the main, just another one of those people to keep the main boss turn meter down. But does he deserve a spot over K? I don't know. That's debatable. That's really debatable. So, but this is where I'm going to put him this month. K. So K dropped. I used to have K up here with Rosie because if you're a new account, you're going to get a lot of mileage out of your K, a ton of mileage. And I still use her today in my, Stag Favor Dungeon, right? She still does decent damage. But now that we've kind of figured out the Tristan thing, Tristan's doing more damage. Tristan's doing more damage than your K. But a lot of people, when this game first came out, said K should be your first fully awakened 6-star hero. Just because you get her for free really, really early. And she does do decent damage. It's just once you have everyone else catches up to her, she kind of fades into the background a little bit. But I still use her on Penvid 2, or Penvid 10 still to this day. So I use her in a couple places. And you can too, which is why she still gets an A rating. Arduin. So I put 2 versions of Arduin on here. Usually I don't for rares. Arduin Wind and Arduin Fire. I prefer Arduin Wind. So they both do almost the exact same thing. The difference is the Fire does less damage, but has more polymorph chance. The Wind does a lot more damage and has, I think it's only a 5% less polymorph chance. Some people like her for the polymorph. Some people like her for the damage. Plus, you put her in a counter-attack set, she's always going to counterattack with her S2, which in Wind, it's going to hit, I think it's 6 times. I'm not sure Fire hits 6 times. Like I said, Fire's going to do more polymorph, less damage. But the Wind, you put her in a counterattack set, you just watch her pew-pew people. It's really fun to watch. So she definitely gets a spot as A. Wind or fire. If you can get wind, I would build up the wind. But if you want polymorph, if you want CC more than damage, then do fire. Arthur right in the middle, right at the end of this tier, but kind of like right in the middle of this whole field. You get him in fire. You start the game day one with Arthur in fire. But fire sucks. Luckily, early on in the story mode, you're going to get his wind weapon. The minute you get his wind weapon, you switch to that wind weapon. Because he does a lot of damage. If you can max out that wind weapon's the S3, the skill 3. You also need him up there in chivalries, like C8 or higher. Once you do, I've seen people use him at, like, say, Forbidden Dungeon hard or Forbidden Dungeon normal 100 to almost one-shot the boss. He does so much damage against Frost unit heroes or Frost unit enemies. So he gets a spot on this list because he does have uses. I've seen people pull him out, just whip him out and slap him against things. That sounded really bad. But he can do good damage. Bodwin came up. So Bodwin is the Wish version of Guinevere, or the Temu version of Guinevere, whatever platform you know. I don't know. I think Wish maybe only in Canada, but he's the Temu version of Guinevere. He does the kind of same stuff she does, but less effective. But people are starting to use Bodwin in higher level Forbidden Dungeon hard modes because of his S3, which splits the damage across your whole team. So if you going up against some opponents that could just have some one-shot nuke power, bring in Bodwin. Build him really beefy. Put him in a vigor set. He does need a little bit of accuracy because he's got a silence on his S2. I think it's his S2, which can come in handy. But that S3, that share, that split damage, it actually comes in clutch in a couple of endgame places. So that's like the S, the triple S, the S, the triple A, the A. I think that kind of sums up nicely. These next units I have in the PvP ranking because while I'm not saying there isn't uses for them outside of PvP, let me just switch my noggin up to the top left corner. Well, I'm not saying that there's not uses for them outside of PvP. PvP is where they shine immensely. You probably don't need them outside of PvP. You probably want to run someone else. We'll kind of discuss. So Ceres, her lead is a speed lead, and it's just in Arena. Arena and Clan Wars, so PvP. It's a PvP speed lead. So anywhere outside of PvP, that speed lead doesn't work. Now, once you get her up to C8, okay, we can make a caveat in this case. We can say at C8, maybe I bump her up to AAA, right? But that's a hard cost in February when she's still up to summon on. The vast majority of you are not going to have a C8 series. You're going to have like a C0 or a C1. And in that case, yes, you're going to use her in Clan War to get that speed lead. You're going to put her in PvP Arena to get that speed lead. And then outside of that, you're probably not going to use her. I'm not saying there isn't uses or you can use her, but you're probably not. So she is firmly, for now, classed in PvP, but she does get that top spot. Now, maybe Anya, bad Dylarr. Anya Wind is generally considered the best PvP relic for her. I do have her up here in Fire as well. But if you have Wind relic, you're never going to run Fire relic in PvP. You're just going to run the Wind one. You're going to run the Wind one in Forbidden Dungeon Hard where there are Wind requirements. But it's not essential. But it is, if you get it, it is generally considered, as of right now, the best PvP relic for her. So it gets a good old number 2 spot in the PvP tier. Oh, Turin Fire. If you haven't seen the videos, there are some cool videos. I have gotten up to some maddening moments where I have my Bedivere, who is maxed out in Arena, goes one-on-one with Turin, and he will never hit her because she just keeps doing evasion up, and it stacks up to 4, I do believe. 4 stacks, which is basically making it so she's unhittable. So there are a bunch of videos too where this is where you're gonna use her in PvP because that's where you're gonna use her. Outside of PvP, you want her to use her for her healing. You do want to use her for her healing in PvP, but it's all about for the fire turn. It's all about that S2 AoE evasion up for your whole team. It is so maddening when you go against it, and I'm so glad I have it. Anya fire, we kind of just talked about already. It's nice in PvP. It does better damage than Frost, but wind is better, right? And you're not going to use the fire outside of maybe a Forbidden Dungeon fire requirement, or that's it. That's it. Lot, Frost. So Lot, a lot of the stuff that makes Lot good is already built into his kit, right? Vigor generation, vigor decrease. He can extend debuffs or extend abnormal status immunities out on the field. He can do a lot of good things in his kit. What Frost does is his S2 buffs your whole team and allows them to freeze the enemy. So it gives them CC as well. So I've heard of people liking it. I would recommend it in PvP, although in the current state of PvP, it's kind of hard to find a place to slot into a lot into a team. But I've come up against some really good, well-built teams where, yeah, he's annoying. Gawain Wind. This is the only place I could put him because the whole reason why he's in the PvP tier is because he's immune to turn meter manipulation on the first move. Meaning, if you got like a max out Gawain, spin it to win it, baby. Spin it to win it. He can dish out an okay amount of damage. He's got an execute when an enemy is sub 100% or sub 10%. That's kind of nice, but I have been caught off guard by Gawains in PvP before. There's really no use for him outside of PvP, in my opinion, or at least not that I know of. Florentius. We all like saying that name, right? Florentius. The other Roman on this team, or on this board. So I did get his Frost Relic, and I was never more pleased because his S2 is 100% freeze. 100% freeze. I was never more pleased when I took a Florentius into one of my only Clan War battles, and I stun locked a Bedivere the entire time. Bedivere just didn't move. 100% freeze. 100% freeze. 100% freeze. You get the Frost Relic. His S2 is an AoE damage, plus it does all the things that his S2 does. Wind, you can use him again, he's got some vigor manipulation in his kit as well. His kit reads like a novel. I ask you to go read it and try to tell me you understand it fully. I kind of got it in my head, but he's got a lot of PvP focused stuff in his kits. But I would recommend. Well, so I like the stun and the AoE damage on his S2 in Frost. The Wind Relic has an AoE silence on the S3. AoE silence means the enemies can only use their S1. So that's also really good, right? Prevents them from taking a move. But outside of PvP, I've heard you could maybe use him in Aldry, but he's going to die. And really, do you have to? No. And you're not going to get Florentius till down the road anyway. You'd probably better off just buying copies of Sergius and get till he's like Chivalry 8. But I grabbed a couple copies of Florentius. You see this one's C1 and this one's only C0. And I have used the Frost ones in PvP. And hence, he's on the PvP list. Boars. Okay, Boars is easy. Go watch my boar video. You'll be bored watching my boar video. Why is that funny? So Boars, he is a tank. He is a tank. He actually taunts. But he counterattacks, and he gives counterattack to your whole team, and he gives increased counterattack damage to your whole team. I've got a video. Again, go look at my deep dive video on Boars. He's really fun to play with in like an Arduin and AIM team. He's really cool. And he's fast because he starts the battle with plus 20% speed. So if you build him really fast, he can go first, give that counterattack to your whole team, that counterattack damage up, and it's his S3. I can't remember what else it does, but he can be really fun. And he generates shields on hits, I do believe. He can be a little beefy. Plus, he's got the coolest armor in the game. So, look at it. He's making me smile. If he's making me smile, he deserves a place on this list. The only reason why Rosie is on here is because in the early days of PvP, I would see some Wind Rosie, because I do believe I think there was some CC on her S3, and in PvP, solo PvP, Coliseum, she's also a 20% speed lead. So I did get caught by a couple Wind Rosies. So if you're early on, I don't think she's up there in the upper levels of Coliseum, like the master levels, but you can definitely use a Wind Rosie in the lower levels as a speed lead in PvP. Okay, so that's the PvP action. PvP action? Wow. Stumble. I've only had what? Not even 8th? So good when it hits your lips. So good. For those wondering what it is, since I am in Canada, it is Bud Light Apple. So good. Can you spell demonetized? All right, so now we're into the last 2 sections of this list. 45 minutes. I told you it was going to be long. All right, so these heroes down here in the dungeon list or this dungeon tier, the only real place you're going to use them is in dungeons. So Akalan, even today, Akalan is better than Gilroy. Where did I put Gilroy? Oh, yeah, there he is. So Akalan, he's just got that S2 heal disruption. Use him in Aldry. It's the only place you're going to run him. Dejaret makes Gorgos 10 easy mode. Right? He takes dots. He cleanses himself. He gives your whole team attack gauge. And he cleanses debuffs. Or cleanses dots. He is tailor-made for Gorgos. Since he's in the dungeon list. Isolde. I almost forgot her name. Isolde, again, Gorgos team. Gilroy. I almost want to put him in not used. He's just... There's going to come a day when we are going to need that AoE heal disruption. And remember that once you get him up to C8, heroes that hit heal disruption afflicted enemies will do increased damage. So I could see a use case for him in higher level Aldry clan boss battles. Clan raid boss battles. But for now, I don't know. Maybe shouldn't be on this list. Because I don't like using him in Aldry. He makes it less consistent. When it lands right, when everything lines up, and he's got that stupid health decay mechanic, if that lines up right, which you can't control, because it just goes out based on your cooldowns. And I'm losing my voice. Gilroy sucks. I don't know what they were doing putting him out. It was just a stupid kit. All built around that health disruption and anti-healing. Like, again, there's going to come a point in the future where we need that kind of unit. But today is not that day. All right, Bulk and Allen. I can't do this. I didn't make a video on it. But Bulk and Dejaret, they have some interesting synergies that you can use to cheese a lot of content. Go check out Stu Gaming's channel. Search Bulk on his channel. You will find it. Him and Dejaret can basically, together, those two, equal a weaker version of Flame Sergius. They can keep going over this loop of supplying your whole team turn meter. Right? So a lot of people early have used them to cheese content in this game. Be it Forbidden Dungeon Normal, Story Mode, some level 10 dungeons. You can do it. But Bulk is useless without Dejaret. Okay, so keep that in mind. Allen is really, really, really good for early levels of Tarask, like 1 through 8. Because Allen is a weaker version of Cloudus, right? This Cloudus right here, this one. He can do the exact same thing pretty much. He's got an AoE S2 that strips attack gauge. So, and I do believe his leadership ability in Tarask is, I think it's increased effect accuracy. It might be attack or effect accuracy. Either way, it's a good leader ability. So, but that's the only place you're ever going to use him is in Tarask. Early levels of Tarask, not stage 9 or 10. And that's the same with these last 2 units. So Clementine and Ban. Clementine is a healer that puts herself to sleep instead of healing. You've heard me talk about it, rant about it. I don't like her. But she does have a lot of different attack gauge stripping mechanics in her kit, so you can use her for early levels of Tarask or very early PvP maybe, but she is very quickly going to fall off. And the same with Ban. So Ban, he used to be good pre-launch, pre-main launch of this game, but he got the Ban Hammer early. Ban got the Ban Hammer. That's kind of funny. And now he sucks. So he got the same speed Ban Hammer that Tristan got. We just didn't feel it in Tristan until more recently. Same thing. His attack is based on speed, and it just doesn't scale properly. But he does have his some attack gauge manipulation in his kit. He's got a high chance to strip attack gauge, which is why in early levels of Tarask you can use him effectively to control the turn meter. So that's why he's on here. Him and Clementine both are for early level Tarask, and that is it. You won't use them anywhere else. At least not that we've found now. And then these down here, these not used, because they're not used. They're not used. I got the Cloudus Frost from the Ceres dungeon event. Don't use it. Don't know why. No, don't. It doesn't do a lot of damage. The Frost one does do more damage, but offers less, I think, buffs on the S2. Because I think her S2 buffs your team on the fire, but not the Frost. So it's nice to have, but you're never going to use it. Guinevere Fire, never used it. Círdan, oh no, that's not Círdan. This is Gareth, never used her. I don't know if it's a girl, though. Never used them. Ralph, he can do some cool things, but you're never going to use him. Círdan, never going to use her. Nicholas. Now, I have heard a tale of people using Nicholas in certain very high-level Forbidden Dungeon hard mode. Dungeon, stages, fights. But it's kind of a myth and a rumor. So I'm not going to believe it. So he is not used. Urian's. Now, I still have Urian's fire on here. Wind is his better relic. He comes in fire, I do believe. Maybe ice. I can't remember. But, you know, you can put him in a counterattack team. He can hit hard, but he requires his health bar to get really low to hit more damage. And he counterattacks and yada, yada, yada. But I find that usually when his health gets low, before he does the damage, he dies. So, you know, you can put him in a cool little counterattack team, but he's also squishy. And the UI, the enemy UI, seems to always just target him and nuke him down and kill him. So, you're not going to use him. Frederick used to be used everywhere when this game launched. Because he does an AoE, heal, and AoE attack up to your team. Very, very good. But outside of Favor Dungeon, no one uses Frederick anymore. He's already been displaced. There's no place for him anymore. Although, I might try him somewhere else today. But no. So that's the list, ladies and gentlemen. That is the tier list. I'm going to move my head right now so that you can screenshot this if you so choose. Or so I shouldn't say I'm going to move my head. I'm going to get rid of my noggin. So there you go. If you want a screenshot, 3, 2, 1, and now I'm coming back. Oh, that was the wrong button. There we go. I like the little border around my head. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, that is the tier list for King Arthur Legends Rise for February. If you were watching this a week, 2 weeks from now, and the new hero's not on there, just ask me. I'll let you know. This sheet is in the description below. Click on my King Arthur Legends Rise Master Spreadsheet or the Spreadsheet. You will always find this. So if you're watching this in the future, know that the new hero is on this list as of the 6th, I think. You can find her there. But until why does old Cormac? There we go. I was gonna say, why has Cormac got that box around him? Till then, ladies and gentlemen, what do we want to do for a word of the day? What do I got up here? Not that. Oh. Okay. There we go. Okay, we'll do this. So, I don't know how many of you, I'm sure some people watching this, collect Funko Pops, right? So, for those of you that know, especially if you're a Star Wars fan, so before Cara Dune, aka, oh, why am I blanking on her name? Oh, that's not good. Before Cara Dune got canceled from Disney and was kicked off, they made 2 Funko Pops. One of them has her pistol, and one of them has her giant assault rifle. The assault rifle one was a limited run. So this is number 356, Cara Dune. Bobblehead, it just says bobblehead figurine, right? Cara Dune, that's it. Special edition. And they pulled this run early. They some of them got out, but they pulled it. And I found this on the top shelf in some little corner comic book store in good old Saskatoon. And it's actually worth a little bit of money. It is kind of a collector's item for how rare this is. So the word of the day, the safe word of the day, is going to be Cara Dune. If you've watched an hour, if you've listened to me ramble, making really bad jokes, inappropriate jokes, saying stupid things, if you've watched me for an hour, put Cara Dune down in the comment section below. And I think I'm going to have to say something more special than thank you. Because that's a tall tale to have you listen to, an hour and probably three ads. Don't skip the ads. But yeah, Cara Dune, put that down in the comment section below. I'll know you made it to the end. I'll try to say something a little bit more unique than I usually do. Check out all the links in the description below. They take you good places. They give you good things. I did mention the CC stuff, so if you guys didn't catch my round table video yesterday, I'm skipping 2 CC missions because I'm just not going to do them because I don't care to shill their Steam launch just for coupon codes. If you really want those codes, you know what I recommend? Go jump over, follow Susie Plays, get the 2 codes from her, then come back to me, right? Because the mission that we get for the end of February, I'll gladly do because it is game content. I'm not shilling their launch on a different platform. I don't want to download it on my computer. I already have 2 versions of this game on my computer. I don't want Steam either. So that is that. So ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap this up right there. Happy February. I hope this list helped. Please tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section below. But before you do, you have to say Cara Dune before you criticize me. Okay? All right. Till next time, ladies and gentlemen. Cheers. Peace. Bye-bye.